Good morning. My name is Mark Ray, and we're here for our webinar today to discuss insurance. And we're lucky to have visiting as a guest speaker, Phillip Wigginton. My name is Mark Ray. I'm on the task force team with Jay and the Vertical Alliance and the Infinit-I Workforce Solutions Group. And I've got 30 plus years in the truck transportation industry, 20 as a corporate officer, and I've been involved in multiple insurance renewals and gained a great appreciation for how important establishing and maintaining a healthy relationship with our insurance partner is. So, and a big part of that is assessing the risk, which we'll get into here in a little bit. So, Phillip, you're involved in assessing the risk in the industry for Nationwide. You want to just introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. Morning, everybody. I am currently the manager of our risk management services division with Nationwide Excess and Surplus. We do write a wide breadth of commercial auto business. The biggest part of our business is trucking. I have a team of 8 risk managers spread across the country who will do risk assessments on new business, as well as working with current policyholders and members on improvement of their overall safety, any issues they have with SMS scores, accident rates, best practices, just the whole breadth of it. I come from a trucking background. I've been around trucks since I was a kid. My dad was a truck driver, owned a trucking company. I went to work for the state of Texas, training inmates to drive trucks at the ripe old age of 21, and then been around trucking ever since. From the state, I went to work for the Highway Patrol doing truck enforcement. I was a compliance review investigator. After that, I went to work for an industrial company here in Houston doing DOT safety as well as regular safety for about 1,000 employees. And then I've been with Nationwide for almost 5 years working with our customers. I truly enjoy what we do to be able to consult and help with our members. So that's me.
Well, that's a big part of the insurance carrier relationship. Jay, are you jumped in? Almost.
Yes, okay. Yes, I am. I'm changing seats with Jeremy right now. I appreciate that. Appreciate everybody. I'm Jay Wommack. I'm CEO of Infinit-I Workforce. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad y'all are here with us today. This is a pretty exciting day. I really enjoyed Phillip's presentation and what he's going to talk about. We have been in the industry for 20 years, and we have developed what we think is a really good process and a good system to help people cope with what's going on right now with the coronavirus and create good leadership during the crisis. And part of our series is to bring good information to you and then show you how to deploy that and how to survive during this situation. So let's just jump right in, since Mark and Phillip have already made their presentations of who they are. It's pretty exciting about today. I'm really excited about it. And the first thing I want to talk about is our task force put together the 5 leadership practices to help logistics thrive during the coronavirus. And what we looked at was what really needs to change. How do we need to respond to the marketplace? What do we need to do to bring best practices to the next level? And number 1, leadership best practice is to propel the psychology of the problem solver. Number 2, leadership practice is to put in place the new effective organization in crisis management. Number 3 is leadership practice, more agility and more leaders. And number 4, leadership practice, the healthy rhythm. Number 5, leadership practice, empathy and bonding. We're going to go into deep dive on number 1 and 2 today. And 3, 4, and 5, you can find at infinitiworkforce.com/coronavirus. We've already posted the videos that deal with those, webinars that deal with those 3. So with that in mind, let's jump right into the very first one as part of our expert series, because our task force did a great job putting together good information that's helping the industry right now. In the first leadership practice, you got to propel the psychology of the problem solver. Let's face it, You are the problem solver, or you wouldn't be on this webinar right now. You wouldn't be looking for new information. You wouldn't be looking for new things. Your state of mind is critical. You've got to maintain a positive state of mind, because that's going to be more contagious than the virus. Meaning and communication. Acknowledge that you're actively working through the crisis, and you are. We are. The whole industry is working through the crisis. We are all in this together. Use videos to impact the emotions of your team. Keep the team going in the right direction. And then credibility. You build your credibility if you're using checklists and guidance, and you're putting together easy training videos and rolling those out for people that we can host for you. And then all of a sudden you've built your credibility, because you're not just maintaining that positive state of mind, you're working through the crisis, and you're building your credibility by showing them exactly what you're doing every step of the way. You don't panic, you don't overreact. Leadership practice number 2 is the new effective organization in a crisis management. So you've got to launch networks of peer support groups in order to deal with the crisis at hand. You've got to get real world information. There are new types of issues that are rising every day. And they're generally hard to forecast and hard to understand, particularly if you're at the central office location. So what you have to do is get as much real world feedback as you can. Call everybody to discover and experiment solutions that are going to help in the situation. I mean, you just got through hearing Phillip talk about truck stop issues, things of that nature. Where are you going to park the trucks at night? So use ongoing surveys to understand the status of the workforce. And we've set up a blog at Infinity Workforce Solutions where you can literally do that. So you can log on and get real world information, what's going on, or you can set up your own system to do that with. In the meantime, you can use this one. That'd be wonderful to do that with. But the new effective organization in crisis management, this is what it really looks like. Manage action outside normal operations. In order to do this, the task force came back with the 3 leadership groups. And the leadership groups really talk about, it's number 1 is the executive team. And what you have to do is you have to map the situation, keep updated, what's going on in the real world. You've got very important decisions to make. You've got to prioritize and assess everything that's going on in the real world. And then you've got to drive the change. You've got to communicate and retrain. You've got to retrain the people how they approach a loading dock or how they're going to approach a company that's out there. So that retraining has got to be blitzkrieg. It's got to be very fast to do that with. You can't do it in the classroom anymore. So remote training has become one of those things that's jumped to the forefront of what's going on in the world around us. The response organization, in order to make this organization is kind of put on top of your core structure. This is the SWAT team structure. And it's the response team that's going to be extremely fast and respond to the marketplace during the crisis. So you want to have a medical advisory group, guidelines, policies, get someone that can research that. The response team, there are people out on the road, they have to have problems solved now, immediately. Who's in the situation room? Who's there that's going to respond fast right now? You have to have that team in place. Then technology and learning. You got people now working from home. They have to know what the best practices are. They don't have leadership right there with them every second. Now they're working from home. How do you best do that? How do you do just-in-time education to get people up to speed? Well, that's where we come in. We with Infinity Workforce Solution, that's part of our forte. That's what we do. But now let's look at the solution with peer teams. If you're making decisions from a central location, you've got to have information from out in the real world. The truck drivers, you got to share best practices. The dispatchers, what are they seeing? What are they thinking? How are they sharing that information, particularly if they're working from home? They can't just turn around and say something to the person they're used to talking to. Now they've got to communicate via the internet. Operations, how are things changing? So those are your 3 teams. And then outside of that, we have to have outside information. And that's part of what we're bringing today is Phillip. I really am excited about Phillip. I can't say that enough. Phillip is the real go-between a carrier and the underwriter to make sure that they can maintain their insurance and what do they have to do to stay safe, et cetera. So the green oval down in the left-hand corner that talks about industry emergency discussions, that's what this is all about. And if you enjoy what Phillip brings to the table today, we've got a great follow-up for you to talk about. So Phillip, I want to turn it over to you. I mean, this is I'm pretty excited about what you have to say. So Phillip, I appreciate you being here with us today. And Mark, you being here to help facilitate this. Phillip, lay it on us. Tell us what we need to know.
Okay, thanks, Jay. As I mentioned earlier, and Jay just stated, so myself and my team, we're the conduit between the insured and the underwriter. And my team, we're the only customer-facing people on the trucking side. You have to, our distribution channel, you go through a retail agent, to a broker, to us. So we definitely take that opportunity to be able to provide a ton of value to our policyholders and our members with that. So what my team does is not only do we consult on best practices, but what's changing in the industry and how we're responding to the COVID situation that everybody's dealing with right now. Now, just a fun fact, so Nationwide actually got ahead of this curve, and I think we have 20,000 people working from home at this time. So we mobilized and everything. So we're dealing with it as well, and like all companies are. But back to what my team is doing. So when the FMCSA put out the emergency declaration, and that covers companies providing relief in response to the coronavirus outbreak, which was just extended through May 15th. It covered, hours of service, CDL and medical card expirations being pushed back, waivers for learner's permit holders, and then even PHMSA put out a document saying that they're going to ease up on the hazmat training requirements, the initial and the biannual. However, they did in that same statement call out the fact that you are able to train remotely using Infinit-I Workforce, not specifically Infinit-I Workforce, but utilizing a company like Infinit-I to get that done. And I know they can help you with that. We got with our insurers to let them know that, hey, this is what's going on, and these are some things to consider. Now, the declaration's listed at the bottom of the slide right there for your reference. So if we want to go to the next slide. So does that mean that you can, the emergency declaration, we can throw the rule book out the window and put a grill guard on the truck and go 100 miles an hour everywhere we want to? Absolutely not. So what's not covered in that is relief from state laws and regulations. That's your traffic laws, being on a cell phone, distracted driving, all that still comes into play. It doesn't mean that the drivers can drive impaired, fatigued, or ill. So when a driver's tired, they need to stop and rest. If they're feeling ill, they need to stop and get better and rest. Recordable crashes still have to be reported to FMCSA within 24 hours. And that's either by phone or by email. And it doesn't relieve any companies from drug and alcohol testing requirements. And that was a big question from a lot of our policyholders, like, what do we do about random drug testing? Well, they specifically stated that the random testing requirement spans the whole year, so you can adjust your numbers later in the year to meet that requirement. And the question was, well, I'm still having to hire drivers because we still got to do business. What about pre-employment? And they specifically said you still have to do a pre-employment drug test. You cannot let a driver drive without that. So, we answered a lot of those questions on what is not covered. Can we go to the next one? And then two, we talked a whole lot about, what do we do going back to commerce? So once the load that's providing relief has been delivered and they're hauling regular commerce, whether it be auto parts or tires, anything that's not specifically dealing with the emergency situation, all applicable regulations come back into play. So you still have to log your hours. You still have to stay within the hours requirements. So it's very important to be able to differentiate, this load we were hauling emergency supplies. Now we're going back to what we're regularly hauling and being able to shift between the two. So there's no issues. So we're going to go to the next slide. With anything, there's potential negative impacts. Now, understand that just because a lot of businesses stop working, truckers are still trucking. Like, we're still moving freight. A lot of businesses are still open. And the plaintiff's attorneys that you see on the billboards and on the TV commercials, they're waiting. for all this to be over with, if there's a crash, so they can get that injured party or other party to say, yeah, I was hit by a truck, so they can dig into anywhere they missed in these situations. So along the negative impacts, we're going to see fatigued drivers on the road because, drivers are tired. They're going to have to drive extra hours to find a place to stop, and that's where the trip planning comes into play. They're having to get the loads ran. They may be having to sit at a shipper or a unloading facility for a longer time, so it's going to put them on the road longer. And we're also going to see companies not complying with regulations when required. So that's going to put you back into a bad light if there was an adverse event. And then the potential for unqualified drivers. So the drivers that aren't being fully vetted to make sure their licenses are current, to make sure that they have taken and passed a pre-employment drug test, and that they've been properly trained. And again, that's where Infinit-I can help you out in the aspect to where, how do I train my drivers if I can't get in front of them, right? So here's an option that you can use to train your drivers and to continue to train your drivers. Like, we have drivers that have been on the road. How do we keep new information in front of them? So, all that can equal the increase of risk of an adverse event. And along with the bad, we have the good. So if we go to the next slide. So the good news is there's a lot less traffic on the roads, which is good for truckers because there's a lot less people that's distracted, that's in their way, that's cutting them off. And there's a lot less traffic congestion in major metropolitan areas like Atlanta, which I know every trucker loves Atlanta traffic during the busy times of the day. Same with Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles. All the major cities are seeing reduced traffic, which is going to lower that risk of having a crash. So how do we go forward with all this? If we can go to the next slide. So just a few things to consider, things that we're working with our insureds on. And this will kind of tie into how it will affect not only, how you're performing now, but whenever the dust settles, you're still going to have insurance. You're still going to have drivers on the road. We're still going to move freight. So just a few things to consider. It's some things you can do now. So I know I mentioned earlier, Jay mentioned on the well-being. So check in with your drivers regularly. Make sure that they have everything they need, that they are able to find food. And I'm sure if they can't find fuel, you'll know that. But just make sure that they're okay, that they're getting sleep, they're getting rest, they're not sick or ill. If they have any concerns with, where they're picking up loads or dropping off loads as far as their health and safety. And number two, kind of continuing on out and checking in, making sure they're not fatigued. And that's part of planning the trip, planning the load, the dispatch part of it. So if I know that it's going to take a driver X amount of time to do a load, that we're going to space those out to where that driver can get the proper rest. Number three, make sure your drivers are qualified. So if you're bringing on new drivers, you have drivers out there, make sure that the new ones coming on are being properly trained. The ones that are on the road, you continue that training. And again, Infinit-I Workforce, I guarantee you they have a solution for you to be able to help with that. Number five, ensure drivers are following local traffic laws. Right now, most companies have some type of telematic device, whether it be an ELD or just GPS tracking. So just kind of stay on top of your drivers. Make sure they're not speeding. Make sure they're, not having, hard braking events and everything like that. Make sure they're still following the rules. Because, any kind of crash is going to affect you long term. And document everything. I mentioned earlier on switching from the relief freight to the regular freight. Even though, right now it may not seem important, but keep a good track of what you're doing and when you're doing it. ELDs, how that's being recorded for when you're doing the relief effort. Because, again, the attorneys that are out there, the billboard attorneys, the plaintiff's attorneys, whatever you want to call them, they're still out there, and they're still waiting to come after any trucking company that has any kind of issues. So to kind of tie all that together on how it affects you and your insurability, you know, we were in a hard market in insurance and trucking. Like, trucking is a hard business to insure because you've got an automatic $750,000 limit, and most companies are asking for, you know, get $1 million. So it's automatically $1 million potential on any crash. So it's tough. And up until recently, and it's going to continue most likely, a lot of companies would get into insuring trucks, but they didn't fully understand it, right? Now, I will tell you that Nationwide E&S Specialty and my team, we fully understand it. Everybody on my team, including on up through our underwriters, they understand trucking, they understand the risk, they understand the business. So we know what we're doing, and our claims people understand it as well. So we know what we're doing when it comes to trucking. So we've been doing it for a while, and we will continue to do trucking for a while. Where a lot of companies got in and they didn't understand, and they started seeing these big losses, and they started seeing these nuclear verdicts for 10, 15, 20, $100 million, and they weren't set up to cover those. So they got out of it. So you got companies that see this, they're pulling out of the market, which limits the market, which is harder for trucking companies to figure out a way to get insured. So it limits who they can go do business with, which in turn gives the insurance companies the ability to say, you know what, if you're not performing at a higher level, then we're not even going to insure you, or it's going to cost you a ton of money to be insured. So, you know, having a safety program, operating safely in a time like this is all going to be important on coming out of this and how that all ties in. I did see a question just real quick before we get to questions. Somebody had put in the chat box on companies being able to contact their insurance brokers about trucks that are sitting and having their premiums reflect this. Absolutely encourage you to get with your agent and have those discussions with them, and they can push that up through their broker or wholesaler to push it up to us. I will tell you that Nationwide has taken the stance that, you know, we are on our policyholder side. It's not just a jingle. We do live by that. So we will do everything we can to help out our policyholders. So absolutely have the conversations with your agents on any trucks that are sitting or any kind of premium decrease you're looking for. So thanks, Jay. I'm turning back over to you if y'all want to ask questions or save those for later.
Yeah, Phillip, I appreciate that. This is really good information. I know there's one question on everybody's mind before I jump to the top of this one. Have you met Peyton Manning yet?
I have not. I'm a little farther down on the totem pole, but I will tell you this. So Peyton Manning and Brad Paisley both did a video to all Nationwiders because both of those guys are Nationwide members, thanking everybody for the hard work they're doing, and Brad sang a little jingle. So maybe one day I'll get to meet him.
Good. I hope so. And if you do, I want his autograph. So anyway, that's
right.
That's a horse with different color. We have a question from Timothy Favreau, and he says, it's actually a statement, and get y'all, Mark and Phillip, to comment on this. Trip planning is important for drivers. However, load planning by dispatch is even more important in situations like COVID. We need more training for dispatchers and terminal managers. What are y'all seeing out there in the world from that standpoint? Thanks, Tim, for sending that in. Load planning for...
Yeah, I can jump into that. Sure. Yeah, the operations team need to clearly understand that they're going to be expected delays. And when I say expected delays, you know, most load planners that are assigning loads to drivers are looking at hours of service and miles and things such as that. But under today's conditions, I think there needs to be certainly consideration given to unexpected delays, ability to find parking, delays at truck stops to take a shower and get your food. So yes, I would also say that a best practice for online training is not exclusively for the drivers. It's the operations staff, it's the maintenance staff, it's the orientation staff, it's the training staff. Everybody in a trucking organization needs to have familiarization with what's going on, which I'm going to go ahead and ask a question of Phillip while I've got him here. I know you and your team do assessments, risk assessments that include loss runs and CSA scores. But another important part of that assessment has got to be defendability and culture that are a little more difficult to assess. Can you help the listeners and myself on how Nationwide would look at assessing defendability and culture of a carrier?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And it kind of piggybacks on what my statement a while ago about, being selective. So, we are selective on who we want to insure because we're looking at it as not only like what's your previous loss history, what are your CSA scores, but what is your safety culture? How does your ownership and management view safety? Is it just something we got to do because it'll help us reduce our insurance, or do we actually want to keep people safe on the road? And the last thing I would want to do is have to deal with a company owner or safety director that thinks that having a fatality is just the cost of business. Now, it does happen, sad to say, but we want a company that's really bought into, we believe in safety and we believe in keeping people safe. And I'm not saying that we're looking for a perfect company, because that's where my team comes in. Because if I can go to a safety director and owner of a company or somebody on my team and see that, okay, your safety program has some holes in it, what we want is to hear, tell me how to fix it, and for them to do it. If we can get that kind of buy-in, we feel more comfortable with that kind of company that's willing to make those steps and, to improve than not. So I hope that answers your question plus some.
Absolutely.
It sounds like it's kind of a Venn diagram of obviously if a company has way too many accidents, way too many fatalities, things like that, there's no way they're going to get insured. And I'm making a blanket statement here. But there can be mitigating circumstances where if you have the right safety training program in place, if you're doing corrective action, if you're doing things like that, does that, I assume that helps go into getting somebody reinsured next year if they're at least trying to make steps in the right direction. Is that true or false?
That's a true statement, and we look at all angles. So, what types of crashes are they having? Who's at fault? What's the preventability of them all? And then absolutely the type of training that goes with that. And that's a battle that we fight all the time, is like with defensive driver training or orientation. And I always get, Phillip, why should I train a professional driver? This guy's been driving for 20 years. Why should I have to train him? Well, anything that you can do to better that driver or that dispatcher or that operations manager or maintenance tech, whoever, that's just going to make your company a whole lot better. And having that wide variety of types of training at your fingertips, online, like with Vertical Alliance, will give you the ability to change it up, number one, give them different kinds of training, but be able to focus on where you're having those problems. So if they're having problems with rear end collisions, focus training on that. And this is where we need to fix it, right? So we do work with our policyholders and our members on specific corrective actions, as well as the main one of just having a program in place.
Phillip, while we're waiting, Phillip, I know you've been talking to a lot of carriers. Do you got any input on the response that some of the carriers need to be considering during the COVID crisis?
Response, clarify that for me, because there's a few different answers to that.
Yeah, well, specifically, trip planning.
Oh, right.
The waivers,
absolutely.
using the waivers and things like that.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of information that's come out. Some of it, most of it's true, some of it's inaccurate. You see with the waiver that Utah put out the other day, they didn't exempt truckers in the beginning. They came back and revised that. You see, they had checkpoints at the state line of Texas and Louisiana. They weren't really messing with truckers at that time. Trip planning is absolutely key right now because a lot of places are shut down, with truck stops, and a lot of rest areas in states were shut down. And I know Pennsylvania, for one, opened a lot of them back up once they realized how big of an impact that would have. So, people are having to do business a lot differently now, especially in trucking, because of the lack of resources, just being able to find a place to park. Because it was hard before, and now if you shut down truck stops or rest areas, it becomes even more of a problem.
Excellent. Mark, you got any more questions? We're
No, well, yeah, I do have one other one. I know, I guess it's a safe statement that some of the underwriters the last few years have been nervous. Is that a fair statement? And going forward into 2020 into 2021, do you see relief for a carrier that is responsible, that is doing the right things? Is there some relief out there, or is what's your ideas about that?
Ooh, it's hard to say right now. Again, like I said earlier, in trucking insurance is a hard market just because of the types of claims and the amount of claims, the average amount to settle a claim, and all insurance companies see that. And they're looking at their book of business as, we're insuring this much, what's our liability across the board and what's our exposure. Again, until, the government steps in and says, stops a lot of these frivolous lawsuits and these nuclear verdicts, I can't say with a definite yes that it's going to continue to be the way it is, or there's going to be a relief either way. But in my opinion, if we're still seeing the nuclear verdicts and the crazy lawsuits that are out there, it's not going to get any better. I will say that. And that's not I hate to give a kind of a feather-legged answer like that, but there's just too many variables to say. But I would expect that we're going to come out of this and insurance rates are going to be cut in half because the market was pushing the rates up to begin with, and I don't think that'll change.
Okay.
that is fast. To me, the nuclear verdicts are just unbelievable. I mean, we've seen how valuable the industry is to the world. I mean, everything, I'm preaching the choir now, but everything that you see in your office, your home, everywhere is touched by a truck. And these nuclear verdicts are just harming the society, but they're happening. I mean, it's incredible to me. We've had a few more questions that came in. Let me, would the safety program survive the departure of the safety manager? So to assess safety culture, ask one question: would the safety program survive the departure of the safety manager? I don't know if that's directed at us or at Phillip, but I can answer that from this standpoint, or Mark, you can. But here, the way we've structured our program for our clients, it does, because we have all the records, we have all the tracking, the documentation, everything in place. Plus our client service department is almost like an extension of your safety department, because our employees they work closely with our clients hand in hand to make sure that they don't miss a beat on anything. Generally, when we have a safety director that leaves a company, they go to a new company and they want to sign back up with us for the new company. Is that, Mark, is that kind of down the vein of I think that's the question they're asking on that?
Yes, I would agree with your answer. And of course, I would be very careful. I know there's going to be a lot of pressure for cost cutting. I would be very careful cutting too deep into safety initiatives, whether that be staffing, whether that be technology rollouts. I know there's camera technology, so it's a slippery slope. But the fact is, Infinit-I is an extension of your safety department, can do the assignments, can do corrective action, and and is the custodian of those records in the event you are required to produce documents for discovery.
You know, at the end of the day, I got to speak from the heart here. At the end of the day, you got to cover your company. We're all in this thing together. This coronavirus is just horrible, but above and beyond that, you still have to stave off the wolves, the billboard wolves, or whatever we want to call them. So, yeah, that's why I love what we do, because we have defended companies, and I just, yeah, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort to go build a company and do something great like the trucking companies are doing out there, and keeping our society moving and keeping the supply chain going, and to have, you know, something stupid get in the way of that, you know, when you could have just documented it and had it. Anyway, I get emotional about that. I've got another question, and I wish I could do a follow-up on this question, but this is from Selena Young. Thank you, Selena, for asking the question. Can this be printed or saved for review again later? And here's what I need to prove something to someone in the company. But at the same time, yes, we post the webinars on not only on Infinity Workforce that you can sign them out to people and document they've seen it, but we also post it on our major website, and just go in and you can see a link off the front page, and it'll take you to our webinars that we posted. So you can go back and replay this. So that is always a positive thing. Man, I tell you what, Phillip, I certainly appreciate your time and energy. I appreciate everything you're doing for us and for the industry, and going out there and being that conduit between the underwriter and the companies, and helping the companies maintain their insurance and stay in business, because it's a component that we really all have to look at. If y'all like the information that you just heard, it's an open forum. To have a discussion with someone like Phillip is really, really powerful, to be able to ask him questions and put him on the spot in some ways, and same of Mark. We have an open forum that we put on Infinity Workforce. So if you have questions for the industry, you have access to stuff like this every day, information like this every day. So just check out Infinity Workforce and look for an open forum. And we've done it through a Microsoft product called Yammer. And it's very easy to set up one that's either A, private for your own company, and we can help you do that, or B, an open forum so that you can talk to other people in the industry, because we are all in this together. It's an unusual situation that we're all living with right now. So I've enjoyed y'all today. I've enjoyed the process. I've enjoyed Phillip. And let me do a real quick review of the 5 leadership practices to help the frontline logistics thrive in the coronavirus. And number 1 is propel the psychology of the problem solver. Number 2 is the new effective organization in crisis management. And that's what we went through today, and we looked at that in more detail. Number 3 is more agility and more leaders. And quite frankly, you have to promote people on the fly. I mean, it's an unusual situation. You've seen the people that rise to the top that you want to be in the foxhole with, and you got to promote those people. The healthy business rhythm is leadership practice number 4, just to remind you. Number 5 is empathy and bonding. And what's going to happen when you put your team together and you start dealing with all of this, you're going to bond with people like you never dreamed. You're absolutely going to bond with folks like you never dreamed. I mean, it's almost like being in a war zone. So you have your SWAT team, you have your SEAL team, so to speak. Now, call to action. The folks that are on this webinar, you are a problem solver, or you wouldn't be on the webinar trying to get new information. And I applaud you for that. B, this virus has rapidly moved the world forward from this standpoint. We knew online training was coming. We knew online orientation was going to have to take place at some point. And the virus has forced us out of the classroom into the web. And it's come much faster and quicker than we ever thought it would. So invest in online orientation and start using, we have templates, we have processes, checklists. We've done online orientation, corrective action, and ongoing training for over 2,000 companies in the last 15 years. We've developed checklists, process, procedures. Our client service department is second to none, and we are here to help you get through this. Not just survive, but to thrive, come out of this on the other end and be on top of your game, and have the best system, the best safety, the best company, the best OR that you could possibly have. So start using our online templates. Our client service folks show you how to do that. And I'm in this with you. My name is Jay Wommack. There's my email, jay@verticalag.com. Send an email. We respond. Call the 866 number. We respond. And in order to help the companies that are not involved in web-based training right now, start a complimentary trial. It's 30 days. It's free. We just want to get you set up, get you running, let you take a look at it, and let you see how simple and easy our process makes it for you. I appreciate y'all being here. Let me see. I don't see any other questions. Mark, do you have anything else? Or Phillip, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation before we let everybody go back to the real world and to their job?
Yeah, I just want to thank y'all for inviting me to speak. I really enjoyed it. I always like people tell me I talk too much about regulations and best practices and safety. I can't help it. I kind of, that's my niche. I like regulations and safety. But if you have any questions for me, I know my office number. That's not my cell. It's my office number. But if you have any insurance questions for me or what we can do for you, absolutely feel free to reach out. I'm always willing to talk to anybody. So, but thanks again for having me.
Phillip, we appreciate it very much. Mark, any parting words? Any thoughts?
Well, we're in a risky business. We are in a risky business, and we need to control the risks that we can and be defendable, because those nuclears are out there, whether it's this week or next week or this truck or that truck. The reality is they're going to happen, and you need to prepare for that. So Phillip has certainly brought us a lot of things to consider, to prepare for, and manage the risks that we can control. And online training is certainly a check mark in that world. So I would encourage everybody to sign up for the complimentary trial and give it a shot.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Phillip and Mark, for being here. I'm going to put Phillip's phone number up here real quick just so y'all can have a shot at that. Take a picture of it, or you can go to our website where we're going to post this. It'll be on the platform itself, so you can assign it out and document that people have watched it, or you can go to just our website and find the link, and it should get posted later this afternoon, no later than tomorrow morning. So, Phillip, thank you. 615-252-3460 is Phillip's number. Everybody, y'all have a blessed day, and we'll see y'all next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.